watching the Urban Debate with me, Aarti Subramaniam. The Punjab and Haryana High Court has stayed the Haryana law that provided 75% reservations in the private sector for locals. The plea against the law were filed by industry bodies, including the Gurugram Industrial Association. The Act provides reservation to local youngsters in the private sectors for jobs with a monthly salary of less than 30,000 rupees. It covers private companies, societies, trusts and partnership firms. The private sector has long argued that this is unnecessary government intrusion and it is against the basic principle of meritocracy. They say laws like these promote son of the soils and it is an infringement on the constitutional right of employees who live outside the state. The government, on the other hand, has argued that the law is to protect the rights to life and livelihood of people domiciled in the state and to protect their right to employment. Since the Mandal Commission, reservation has been a deeply divisive issue. Should quotas be limited only to the government sector? Do private enterprises have an obligation to give back to society and the government? Or should the private sector be an absolute no-go when it comes to reservation? Well, to discuss this, Raman Malik, spokesperson of the BJP, Prateek Som, spokesperson of the JJP and the Standing Counsel of the Government of Haryana, the Supreme Court, Professor Yamini Agrawal, Director of Bharati Vidyapeeth Institute of Management and Research, and Rituparana Chakraborty, the co-founder and Executive Vice President of Team Lease, join us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to Mirror Now this evening on a subject that affects a lot of people. When you talk of reservation, there are three arguments that are usually raised in this. One is merit. Two is that it is discriminatory when we talk about merit for domiciles towards those who live outside the state. And the third part is government intervention in the private sector. Mr. Malik, let me just start off with you and start off with the fundamental question which is always thrown around when it comes to reservation. Does it compromise merit, and does it compromise merit in an area where the government should not have a say?
First of all, let's understand the basic premise of this law. This law is a time-bound law. This is there for the next 10 years after the full implementation. The same way as this constitution of the country allocated reservation for SC, STs and backward classes. And why is it that this has been done has to be understood to the core. The youth of the state needs to be skilled to the level that they can compete with people from every scope of this nation who are there and who are wanting a job. One. Second, this reservation is limited to salaries below 50,000. Even after that, there is a provision that if that particular seat is not fulfilled, then in that case, the employer can go ahead, tell the competent nodal officers that this is not being done properly, they are not able to get the required personnel, and relaxation can be given to them. I think this is the most let's say, conducive atmosphere for any company to operate, number one. Number two, it is the obligation of the state also that the youth of the state actually get jobs when the state starts giving concessions and other facilities to various industries. And last and not the least, one should also realize that the basic tenet of the law is that the skilled labor or the people in the state who are seeking jobs should get equal opportunities. Now, having said that, I believe that the state government is not doing it with a malicious intent, but is doing it with an intent to fulfill the obligations under the Constitution of India to give and to promote people with good livelihood, opportunities for jobs, as well as the basic fact that we are here to improve the same ways as we did into panchayat and other electoral reforms that we did.
Okay.
And I, on your channel, I'm confirming this, that we will go till the Supreme Court, if required be, to make sure that this law is implemented in letter and spirit.
Okay, that's an interesting take, but the one word that you said was obligation. Professor Agrawal, obligation of the state and obligation of private enterprises as well. You're benefiting from the government concessions, government tax concessions. Do you not have to give back to society in terms of employment? This is the bare minimum, as Mr. Raman Malik was saying, that they can do.
Well, I think when you talk about the responsibility of the private players, by the fact that they are producing and they are bringing profitability, they are paying their taxes and they're employing people, they fulfill that bit of the responsibility. Besides the different kind of laws, which may be environmental or any other, they fulfill the responsibilities there itself. One important thing that the private players also fulfill is the integration of this nation. Please understand, when you give job opportunities to everybody in the country and you make an equal opportunity available, you are integrating the country and you're making that state also prosperous by your efficiency. You have the central government, which is actually proposing nationalism, one nation theory, in terms of the entire bit of governance, whether it is bringing GST, whether it is bringing one nation, one ration card, whether it is bringing one power grid system, a Gati Shakti scheme, or anything. When it is connecting the country all together, this law defies the very basis of the one nation state, that pride that one should feel in being a part of this country and to travel any part of this country to get itself educated, to get themselves healthcare services, or to get themselves job. If at all there is a responsibility at anybody's part, it is the state's responsibility to skill the particular young people through education, health services, and other basic requirements, and ensure that they not get jobs less than 30,000, but beyond that. Create institutions that can stand at par with IITs, IIMs, AIMS, or others, which can build youth for the development of the state, as well as for their own development.
For your hand raised there, I'll come to you and allow you to respond in just a bit, but let's just get opening remarks from everybody and then I'll come back to you. Prateek Som, I think that was another issue that was touched upon here. Domicile. If you want to provide reservation, in private sector as well, aren't you discriminating against those who are from another state, who are coming there for employment? India has huge internal migration. People move from state to state looking for jobs. But if somebody, say, for instance, moves to Haryana, stays there for 1 year, is looking for that job, then they're going to be denied that opportunity.
All right. So just to begin with this, let me just give you a brief overview that why the government brought this law and what is the intention of the government. See, in Haryana, there are two ground realities. First, we accept and concede to the point that there is a high unemployment rate. And other, that in the last 2 decades, there has been rapid industrialization in Haryana, be it Gurgaon, Faridabad, Manesar, Sonipat, Panipat, they have all hosted the industries. But in view of that, farmers have given their land, local resources were used, government has given soaps, tax benefits, subsidies, and now government only aims that the only reason why this act which is coming is that the locals who have sacrificed for this significant growth story of industries should be given priorities only to those, please listen to my words carefully, only to those who qualify to be skilled and proficient. Now let me come on the myths part, because a lot of myths have been spread around this particular act. Now let me give some precedents. Maharashtra is a highly industrialized state. 37-year-old Marshi Act is there, which states that 80% reservation should be given to the people who speak Marathi. Now let me give you data of State Industries Department of Maharashtra that has been published in March 2019, which states that out of 12 lakh jobs, in around 3,000 industries. Those industries which have claimed incentives from the government, from the state government, 10.6 lakh jobs are being held by locals. This is close to 88% jobs, the dominance of locals in their industries. And in medium and small medium enterprises, MSME, out of 69 lakh jobs, 61 lakh jobs are being held by locals. Mind you, Maharashtra also holds Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India. Maharashtra is a highly industrialized state. Then similar kind of acts are there in Gujarat. Is Gujarat not an industrialized state? Whereas on the contrary, in UP and in Bihar, these kind of acts are not there. These kind of laws are not there. But these states do not have rapid industrialization. So this is how I wanted to prove through data. Now let me come on the myths part. Now people are saying that pink slips will be issued. People who are currently in job will lose their jobs. This act is not retrospective in nature. It has a prospective effect. People are saying industry will go. No industry has gone from Maharashtra, Gujarat, Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh, etc., which has these kind of acts. Now let me tell you, government has been so considerate that 10 rounds of consultations have happened. My learned senior spokesperson of BJP has already mentioned that 50,000 rupees was the bracket in which it was intended that jobs reservation should be given. After deliberation, after consultation from industry leaders, this bar has been lowered and 30,000 rupees salary was fixed. This only came because industry gave this kind of feedback. Then there are a lot of consultations happened with top industries like Maruti, Hero Honda and Flipkart and other kind of industries who wanted to come in Haryana because they feel that it is safe. Now only coming on today's technical part on the legal aspect. See, Article 14, 15 and 16 of our Constitution says that states should not discriminate. Not discriminate on what? Not discriminate on the basis of race, religion, creed, caste, etc., but not mentioned in domicile. Article 19 says that states should not discriminate. But Article 46 of the Indian Constitution gives reservation in the employment categories. So is it not something to be deliberated upon that when the legislation has a clear intent that there cannot be a discrimination on the caste, creed, color, race, religion, etc., whereas a local person can have certain kind of employment. Now coming on the today's stay, let me tell you that it is only an interim stay.
Yes,
the petition has been admitted. The industrial association's petition has been admitted.
Yes.
The interim stay till the time High Court is listening to this particular matter. Yes, let me complete just one more second. Till the time High Court is listening to this particular matter, stay will be there. Government is under notice. Government will provide the reply to their petition. And then their all apprehensions will be cleared. And I hope it is under judicial discretion. Whatever the judiciary will decide, then the state will follow.
Yes, of course, it is an interim stay, and that is something that we're making clear as well. Rituparana Chakraborty, thanks for waiting on. Is the Q word, quota, is it this, why is it rather this big bad word in the private sector? Is there an underlying elitism when the private sector says don't come for us when it comes to quotas? Is there an us versus them that really defines and determines this no private quota for us?
I think between the us and the them, we can all agree on one thing, and which is that this country badly needs a quantum jump in good quality formal jobs. So the issue is not reservation, issue is not quota, issue is what state governments, central governments can do to increase the overall pie of formal job creation in the respective states. That should be the focus. And if honestly the quantum of good quality jobs overall goes up in a particular state, if the state government is investing in creating the right kind of skill set amongst its youth to be able to make use of those opportunities, the ecosystem and the economics of it becomes self-healing. The unfortunate part is reservation without, honestly, the Madam Finance Minister in her budget, I think she started off her speech with focusing on productivity. And I think it's very clear that while India is top 5 GDPs in the country, In per capita income, we are about 127, which means that no matter what we believe the size of the economy, it's not translating into value when it comes to the quality of the jobs. She's also narrated beautifully in plan how the different schemes are going to unlock. And I think that beautiful quote she shared in between, I think, which was amazing, that it is the moral responsibility of the government to ensure that any inefficiencies which exist in the system is done away with. On one hand, we're talking about reducing 25,000 compliances, which she spoke about. We're talking about almost 1,500 union laws being repealed. All of this is to ensure ease of doing business. What can we do to encourage, incentivize our industries and employers to create more jobs? And if that's the case, here comes a particular, provision, law, notification, which essentially means that you again go to a portal, you upload data, you validate data, you petition when there is an exception. You have to wait for the approval, and business waits at that point of time. By the time it's proven this skill is not available. To be honest, in the world of employment, it's very simple. It's demand and supply. I have a demand. If the skill is available, closest to me, I'm going to hire that person. The fact that migration is such a huge issue and so prevalent at the same time is on account of the fact that where economic development is and prosperity, those places do not have the skills that they are looking for. Construction sector in Haryana has to depend because of lack of local youth. And look, I'm talking from the perspective of someone who's been in the employment space for 15 years, and I've given jobs to about 2 million people. I do know what's happening in the ground. And I speak from that perspective. Construction, agriculture, there are many jobs below 30,000 where local youth are difficult to find. If they are there, they will be the first choice because it's not easy for employers, honestly, to move people remotely from other states for any of these jobs. And God forbid, somebody from Haryana who has the skill sets tomorrow chooses to move to some other state and faces the brunt of the same level of discrimination. I don't think that's the India that we envisage and we should intend or hope to be part of. Yes, the incentive structure is what we should be investing in. Rather than reservations and quota, what can we do to incentivize local enterprises in specific states to hire if the skill is available from the local youth? Maybe that could be a much more important trigger. It's sustainable, it sends out the right signals, and it essentially benefits everyone in the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'm very clear that the intent is right. I'm sure that everybody has the right intentions in mind. But one have to take responsibility of the long-term consequences of some of these actions.
Yes. Raman Malik, you wanted to come in earlier. And of course, Rituparana has also put you, I think, on a lighter note in a spot of bother by quoting Nirmala Sitharaman. So please go ahead, though.
See, the basic premise has to be understood that the premise is that the law is not as stringent as one is trying to portray it. The law very clearly states that after the consultation, as Prateek has very clearly stated, it was understood that a threshold needs to be reduced. It was reduced. Then the second thing which brought into attention was that what if we are not able to find such people? He very clearly, the Honorable Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister came forward. They said that fine, if you are not able to do so, not less than an SDM would be a competent nodal authority. He will look into it and will give you a clearance. We as a state have a very clear policy to promote businesses, but at the same time, we are giving a very good system that says that based on the merit, if you are not able to get somebody from here with the skill set, then you may choose and opt other. But at the same time, we are also putting a target onto the state itself that we have said for the next 10 years after the implementation of this law, we would be looking at completely getting the skill set for the
Mr. Malik, I just want to come
population
in
which
here.
needs to be
Raman Malik,
employed
I
under
just
this.
want to come in here because I want to broaden this conversation a little beyond Haryana and beyond the law in Haryana. I want to zero down a little on the very concept of reservation in the private sector and why the private sector is so opposed to it. Why is it that several governments, not just Haryana, several state governments have feel the need to actually wade into the private sector and provide employment there?
See, the basic premise has to be understood that the state has an obligation to create an atmosphere where the people in the state feel confident and they do not feel the alienation that generally happens in a scenario where, let's say, some industry is there and people come in from another state and they are getting working at, let's say, with the a skill set which is there with those people but not there with the local people. Had the local people got the skill set, there would have been much better economic and employability scenario in the state. With this in mind,
Yeah.
each state needs to work on an atmosphere that is conducive for both migratory population as well as the local resident. And if you have a atmosphere where you are taking care of both
Yeah.
and not alienating, like in Maharashtra sometime back, there was a huge outrage against the North Indians and people from UP and Bihar. Such kind of
but that's
atmosphere is not
precisely
good for the
that,
nation.
isn't
But
it,
what are we
Mr.
saying?
Malik? That's exactly one of the arguments
So,
that is
then
raised
you
on
have
the
to
other
understand
side.
one more angle.
That is, I'll come to you, Mr. Malik. Let's just
one
others
more
also
point.
come in because Professor
just
Agrawal, all
5
through your
seconds
response,
more.
was smiling.
I am not taking more than 5 seconds.
Okay, 5 seconds.
I will not take more than 5 seconds.
Okay.
My whole point is, if you have a problem with this, then you also indirectly have a problem with the reservation for SC, ST and OBCs, because that also has the basic same intent and premise across the Union of India, which very clearly states that there should be a reservation for these subsects of the society.
Okay, Professor Agrawal, you were smiling when Mr. Raman Malik was speaking. I'll give you an opportunity to respond, but let me just throw in one more question for you there. Does reservation and this sort of domicile reservation, beyond there is one aspect of just reservation, the other is reservation for locals. Does it promote the sense of parochialism? Does it promote the sense of sons of the soil? And as Mr. Malik was asking, what is the difference? Do you also then object to reservation for SCs, STs and OBCs?
I think there's a completely different point of view with ST-SCs and the OBC reservations versus the locals reservation. As far as SC, and OBC are concerned, they have been the backward classes and they have been somewhere or the other had the deprivation for the economic resources which were available. And they have to be uplifted through and through despite several years of independence through the journey of economic prosperity and make them eligible to be a part and parcel of the economy. When we talk about locals have been given an opportunity by the state through the economic resources to develop themselves. It is the responsibility of the state to ensure that the particular resources like education, like skill sets, like colleges, like health centers are available to the local people to ensure that they're healthy to go and seek employment in any part of this country. When you say local reservations, you are somewhere or the other alienating yourself from the rest of the country. You are making a state by itself by saying, no, you should remember statehood stands beyond nationalhood. Nation state stands before the state.
But Professor Agrawal, is the problem reservation in private sector, or is the problem reservation for locals in the private sector?
It is both reservations in the private sector because private sector needs to be efficient. They fend for everything. Right from the land, they have to pay a higher price for it. right from a building to everything. They don't get anything free or subsidized, like the PSUs, which may get a land free of cost, which may get all the systems in place in trend, even the support for approvals which are there. Private players have to struggle all through. They have to be competitive, not only domestically, they have to be competitive internationally. Merit and the fitness of the job needs to be ensured by them to be competitive enough. The second is, why should the locals be made or alienated in the state, or given the idea of statehood against especially the youth, which is very important. The youth makes the nation. They should feel it is their country. They may go anywhere, any part of the country. It will welcome them as it would welcome anybody else as from the part of the country. Let's feel togetherness, and especially when the central government has been focusing on making it one nation by all means, whether it is regulations, whether it is registrations, whether it is anything else.
Yeah. Okay, Rituparana, I do apologize. We're actually a little short on time and we have a curtailed debate, but just one question to you, which we are following up on. Is the problem reservation in the private sector, or is the problem reservation for locals in the private sector? And the second part of it, and this is often cited when we talk about reservation at any level for any category, is it promotes, or rather it hits merit, or the other argument that is often put forth is that it can hit efficiency. What do you have to say to these arguments?
I personally feel any kind of reservation anywhere when it comes to jobs is inappropriate, because yes, it goes against the very premise of meritocracy. And whether it's the private sector, whether it's the government or anywhere else, I think that's the most fair measure of any human being, any resource, any employee, that you have been hired fair and square because of the job that is there and you're the best fit. And also one has to keep in mind that the world is becoming more competitive day by day, and India is competing. It's not competing within the domestic market. We're competing with the world. We're competing with China. We're competing with US, and God knows who. There are many countries we are competing with, and we have to acknowledge that India has one of the. I mean, there is a productivity index, and India ranks the lowest, one of the last bottom 10 countries in the world. And if in a country like this, we really need to come out of this. We have to focus on meritocracy and nothing but meritocracy when it comes to jobs.
Yes.
Because that's how we're giving freedom to employ and industries to compete, to be the world's best. And that's essentially what every Indian should be asking and hoping for.
Okay, Prateek Som, you have your finger up. I'll allow you to respond. Just one small request. We have less than a minute, or rather just a minute left on the show, to request you to keep it brief.
Yeah. So when we talk about, ease of doing business in India, we should also talk about ease of, employees while performing their jobs. Just imagine a situation, a Bangalore or a Mumbai or a Calcutta guy coming in Gurgaon, doing a 20,000 rupees job a month, spending 10,000 rupees on paying rent in, taking accommodation in Gurgaon, and spending another 5 on, staying here and boarding and lodging expenses, rather than a local who is skilled, who is proficient, is, staying there and, earning 20,000, making more money, saving more money, spending it as per the, the requirement. They have to understand that this act is not punitive in action. This act only states that the local people who are skilled, who are qualified, who are proficient, they may be taken. Otherwise, if an employer feels that he cannot find a suitable candidate, he can file for the exemption and he can go ahead and employ anybody he wants to. But the only thing the state which is intending is that the locals, in lieu of the sacrifices made by the government, made by them, made by the farmers, made in terms of natural resources, other things, they should be given priority, because they feel that it will turn out to be a solution for two major problems. One, the unemployment rate in the state, and other thing, that people will have ease of life while performing their jobs.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for participating in this debate. As I was saying, since the Mandal Commission reservation has been such a deeply emotive and a deeply divisive issue in our country. Very recently, the Supreme Court said reservation is not at the cost of merit. But it is a debate that is ongoing. It is a debate that continues, especially when it comes to jobs in the private sector.